Hello! Today we're going to be building my first ever PC. I thought about making a super static video that was just like a time lapse and everything, but I'm too much of a yapper to not talk about everything. Anyway, I also want to point out that I am not an expert or anything like that, so very much so like rookie mistakes that I'm going to talk about throughout this. So I had to wait for all my PC parts to come in, so they were sitting in a corner in my office for a month, and then I also had this printer stand that I was going to build to put my PC and my printer on. So here's all my parts. I tried to make them look aesthetically pleasing, but I'll put the details in the description. I also got this wireless adapter not realizing the motherboard had LAN, but I ended up using it anyway. And then I had this USB extender and then a monitor switch that I didn't end up using either, but then I also got the strimmers for my motherboard and GPU. Here's me struggling to push this gigantic case because it was so heavy. Anyway, I got the Lian case because ever since I started watching PC building videos, I really wanted a white one, and the cool thing about this is that it has RGB on the side. Here's me struggling to get this out of the box. I ended up just turning it around because there was no way to get that thing out. Also, we are not going to judge my cord situation or the stuff underneath here. I filmed this around Christmas, so I had a lot of stuff going on. Onto the motherboard. I obviously got this one because it fits the aesthetic, but I really liked the white and silver aesthetic of it, and then it also has those black accents, so it looks very nice. For my CPU, I got the Ryzen 7700x because it has 8 cores and 16 threads. I knew I was going to use it for gaming, but I also wanted to use it for like video editing and other things. Here I am making sure those triangles are lining up. And then it was so scary putting this back down because there was so much resistance. I just was not expecting that. For RAM, I got the Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR5 since the motherboard could support it. I got 32 gigs just to make sure I had enough. And then I also really liked the way that the RGB looked, and then the logo on it just looks so minimal. It looks great on those RAM slots. Also, it was so scary to put this in too because I didn't want any issues, so I made sure it was very secure. For my SSD, I got kind of a budget one, but I got 2 gigs just to be safe, and I can always upgrade. Also, I have no idea why this heatsink was not put on all the way, but I guess it worked out either way. Rookie mistake number 1, I totally thought that this was a screw-in system, but it was clearly a latch system, and I had to watch some videos to make sure. Onto the AIO, you know I had to get that NZXT Kraken Elite. I really liked the LCD screen, and then when I watched videos, I saw people put that on their PC and I was like, oh my god, I want that. Here I am removing the screws for the AMD board because we have to put other screws in to support the AIO cooler. So one thing that I really wish I did a little bit more research on was the fan situation for this. I literally was like, okay, I'm just gonna use the in-stock fans because I can spend less money, right? But I literally knew that there was gonna be issues with the cable management, but boy, I was not prepared for it. It was such a disaster to set up. I don't know what I was thinking as well, because why was I putting all the cables together before I put them in the case, but here we are. I also set these fans as exhaust just so that all the airflow can go out the top. Here I am removing all the panels for the case, and then one thing I was wondering about is why Lian has the screws in plastic bags, not in the little case. Rookie mistake number 2 is that I screwed in the motherboard without accounting for the space that I would need for the GPU, cords, and the fans on the bottom. So here I am moving all the screws up to support the motherboard. Here's what the motherboard looked like so far. Here I am removing the back brackets for the radiator because I'm going to put some fans here. I also removed the straps so that I could look at the cables, and then I put the little symbol logo on the back of that plate. At this point, I wanted to do some basic cable management just because I wanted to make sure everything was good and tidy. And here it was super easy, but everything else after this got really complicated. On to removing the screw so that I could take out this radiator part because we're going to put some fans in here. Clearly I love Lian Li. I guess that's kind of not an issue, but whatever. I really liked the way that these fans looked, and then also the way that they were just so easy to daisy chain. Again, one thing that I wish I did a little bit more research on was paying close attention to the way that these fans were going to face. I totally thought that the Infinity design was the back side, not the front side, so I got a little bit confused when I was figuring out the exhaust and intake situation, but clearly the Lian Li symbol was the back side, not the front side. So unfortunately, I really lost out on using that really cool design because I was using these fans as intake, not exhaust. Onto the top radiator. I really was not expecting how heavy this would be. I had to slide this over a little bit so it fit the right position. Onto the LCD screen, I did have to switch out the Intel for the AMD ring, and then I secured all that in with the screws. And here's where the disaster begins. I was already kind of overwhelmed because each of the NZXT fans had 2 cables on it, so a total of 6 cables I had to manage. I had to plug that into the USB extender, and then the NZXT hub, and then there were some SATA cables, and then there was another cable you had to plug into the actual LCD screen. The cable management stressed me out so much that this turned into a 3-day project. So here we are on day 2 unboxing my power supply. This is a Corsair RM850X. I wanted to make sure I had enough wattage, so that's why I got this one. I was watching a video of someone putting them all in to make sure I was putting them all in the right spots. And then let me tell you, more cables to worry about, so I was very overwhelmed. Since I was stressing, I removed my power supply 3 times, which is not good, but I was just trying to manage all the cables, but at one point I just said, you know, it is what it is. On to the Strimmers. I got these so I could personalize my PC, but I also did see it in a lot of PC builds. I also really liked that you could swap out the black plastic bit for a white one so it fits your aesthetic, but again, more cable management to worry about. The next couple clips are me actually just plugging in everything finally. I just kind of weaved everything to the front, but I didn't plug in everything because I just wanted to make sure I put everything in the back first. So I originally wanted to put in my GPU on day 1, but again, I was so stressed out, so I didn't want to do anything else that night. But here I am unboxing it finally, and I really liked the way that this is white, but also it has that nice little color on the corner of it. Here I am measuring how many slots I need to open up. So I have no idea what I was thinking, but I did not remove that little protective case before putting my GPU in. So to talk about a couple other things, I did not film me organizing my hubs in the back because I had 3 of them. That was already a disaster. I think I went through 3 different configurations trying to figure out the best way to manage the cables, but it still fit in there, so everything worked out. Another dumb mistake I made was that I removed all of the plastic coverings on the outside, not realizing that there was one on the inside. So I had to remove the glass panels and put them back in. Then again, I forgot to remove the plastic covering on the LCD screen, so I had to remove the glass panels yet again. This isn't part of my PC, but it is part of the setup, so I thought I'd show you the monitor I got. I got the Pixio 278 Wave. This is a 27-inch one, and I really liked that it was white, again, to fit the aesthetic. So another mistake I made was that when I closed the back, I accidentally smashed the Lian Li hub. So one of the cords broke and then it wasn't connecting all of the fans to it. But I did fix it because I had an extra hub in the other pack that I had, so thankfully that was very lucky. So a little bit before this, I plugged in the included wireless LAN, but I didn't end up using it because I didn't want to plug it into Ethernet because I don't have access to Ethernet. There was really no reason to do that. So I ended up using the wireless adapter, but I had to get a driver and that took a little bit, but I did end up getting it to work. Here's me just connecting to the Wi-Fi, and then here's some clips of me playing some games on this new monitor and PC. One last thing that I'm going to talk about is that as a longtime Mac user, it was so hard to get a USB drive that would download Windows. I had to go through a different route to get it. It just took a lot longer, but I did figure it out. And then the other issue is that I had to download some drivers so that I could get the wireless adapter to work. So I had to go back and forth, and it just took a whole couple hours. Alright, and here is the finished product. I specifically did a white build because I could showcase all the lights inside, so I did a lot of blue since that's my favorite color. The motherboard also had this really cool spot where you could change the RGB, not that you could see it behind the GPU, but it's there. And then I also changed the LCD screen to a cinnamon roll GIF because that's my favorite Sanrio character. And then there's the Strimmers setting, and then the RAM also changes, which is really cool. Anyway, that's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process and everything that happened. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. Thank you!